Hi, track hearing is Danganronpa 1, or Trigger Happy Havoc, I think it's called. Climax Reasoning. It's an interesting track because this same rhythm gets remixed a few times in the track. I'm pretty sure it's like, pretty sure MTV? No, it's New World Order. New World Order is using the same rhythm, but this one's a bit different, and I prefer this for another reason. It's basically a house track. And if you know house music, from like 90s, 2000s, you're probably familiar with basically what's going on here. You got your old, I think 808 drums maybe? So if that's correct, but more importantly you got like artificial instruments and also just incredible electronic synths, and on top of that incredible piano, interesting background sort of thing going on. There's like this what I'd describe as like walking, I guess. And obviously like the synth block, which I still haven't found to this day and I want to. So I love the synth block sound that they use in the soundtrack. Also Danganronpa soundtracks are just goated. Just fascinating. Yeah, I have so much love and appreciation for the Danganronpa soundtracks because they're all truly one of a kind. It's like, I haven't heard house music like this before. I'm trying to think what's the darkest house song I've heard of the probably like 10 or 20 I've ever heard in my life, to be honest. I'm trying to think. I guess the darkest one, I can't really even identify one. Robin S. Journey Live goes sort of like a darker chord route, if I can remember, but there's also the Alternate 3. It's really hard to say, but I don't think I've ever heard a house track done with a feeling of despair or mystery quite like this. I don't think there's any been done with despair, but this is one of a kind, literally. That's why I just like it so much. It's gonna be kind of insane. Like, I just love these soundtracks. They portray it perfectly, and even with other tracks in kind of the same games, same places and stuff. They also invoke that same sort of feeling, and that's what I really like about this track. It's doing something different, and it's doing it really well. Scarily well, because it is kind of scary. That's what these tracks make me feel like. It's so good. Even though there's some like fun tracks, like the Danganronpa theme is kind of fun. Just not my favourite, to be clear, but it is good. It's always sort of goofy. That's what I like about it. It's like Danganronpa is a pretty hard-hitting game in terms of its graphicness. Not really that graphic, but still. It's a visual novel, and you can collect people's underwear for some reason. And it's just got such an interesting story, and also some pretty diverse characters as well. Like, fucking hell, like one of my favourite things in the first game. You got a lesbian couple. I won't say who, but you have. And also they're like two of the most insanely designed characters too. I think one of them a bit more than the other, and you know what I'm talking about. I've got to love her. But yeah, and I love the gimmick in the series too, because as usual it's like Japanese gimmicky shit. Not shit really, but good stuff. And what's so fascinating about that is the gimmicks are basically everyone's the best in class at something, and you can expect what can appear there. We say like best in class, or I don't know what they call it. Is it like, I can't remember what they call them. Ultimate someone maybe? I don't know. I'm trying to think like ultimate musician. It's probably something that comes to mind. Ultimate rock star. I don't know, but that's again the gimmick of it, of this entire franchise, and that's what makes it so great too. So yeah, let's move on to the first topic. So, I didn't hear about this until soon. This is a meme culture posted about this, but apparently people are deleting TikTok now because it's now US owned and they're starting to ban words, coincidentally, that relate to everything bad around America, such as ICE and Epstein, it seems anyway. But this is the thing. It's, again, being hijacked by someone, but we've seen this before. Many companies have been hijacked by completely corrupt and just absolutely stupid businesses or authorities. And, you know, Twitter was the best example of this. When it was bought out by EM, and he decided to go on a fascist rampage and become an absolute dickhead who was despised by everyone. And you know, look at his past, like, it didn't seem like, at least 2016 sort of era, didn't seem like he'd do anything bad, but then he suddenly went full fascist, and yeah, well, there isn't much to say. Obviously that platform went to shit, and now we're seeing it again. We're seeing it in the form of TikTok. There was another thing I was going to mention about, it was about actually, about ICE and why you should get the fuck out of that if you're involved in it, and why you should repent. And repent as in pay for your punishment. Literally expose yourself, get yourself arrested, imprisoned, whatever it takes. Because anyone involved in that is complicit, and to be honest, the sooner you go, the better it is for everyone else. But I say this because there is likely a war coming between the US citizens and the elites, the mega rich, which ICE is part of. Like, ICE isn't mega rich or elite, but they are defending them. You know, it's only a matter of time before a mass shooting takes place as a result of the fact that people in this situation are just exploiting their power. Hang on, got distracted. But it's just so shitty. Like, come on. Yeah. It's really frustrating to see that, because it's just, this wouldn't have happened if people had actually done the research, if people had actually looked into what this was about, looked into ICE obviously, and the consequences it would have. A lot of the times, I've mentioned this even on the previous episode, which is really important to look at. There's a piece of advice I have, which is pretty universal, but it's about not letting your emotions guide you in these situations, because people have a lot to say about immigrants, and even I used to have things to say. Then I did some research, and it turns out that's actually entirely false. What I believed about immigrants being problematic were essentially false. That's why it's so important to find this information out for yourself, so you don't make these mistakes. It's like seriously important. I really can't stress that enough. And we're about to see similar things will happen again, like where people just ignore this advice, obviously, ignore the fact that truth is important, and suddenly everyone's just unhappy again. And you wonder why? Well, that's why. Because people are just fucking suffering as a result of your carelessness, your callousness. So you only have yourself to blame in that, and if you get killed for it, well, that's not our problem. I hate to say it, it sounds extremely apathetic, but the reality is, when it comes to a war, there's only a winner and a loser by the end of it. I don't think there's ever been a tie. Whatever in history. So you have to expect things are just going to happen terribly, and they're probably going to happen quickly, because let's be honest, the smart and rational people are probably on the winning side. And that's obviously not with the elites, it's with the people who are essentially US citizens. And people underestimate each other because of that as well. They think, oh, it's just a US citizen. No, this citizen could be a hacker, it could be a gunman, it could be a veteran, Could be any fucking one. Again, everyone just seems to underestimate this because of their stupidity and just overconfidence as well. You know, it gets out of hand really quickly. And so it just get ridiculous situations where obviously you'll just be defeated by your own stupidity in the end. Not by a certain side, but again your own stupidity. That's crazy how relevant that is. You know, it's not going to change if you just don't change itself. Like, you have to do something to change, to get away from that. And you know, there is a place for forgiveness if people come out of something like ICE and realise they've done so much wrong. There is definitely a place for forgiveness, not for the people who've done the damage, but for the people who maybe contributed to it, or let's say have things to confess to. There's more respect in that than there is the current situation when some people just think they're not in the wrong and defend ICE at any cost. But as I'm going to go on to now with the case of censorship in terms of TikTok, yeah, it's just hidden behind a stupidly convenient thing here where they say it's a power outage that caused the quote-unquote censorship, even though it said it affects the guidelines. Just stupid, but if that's true, that if there's a power outage, then that means they're already tracking you for these things. So there's already a dangerous situation where you're compromised. As if you didn't want to be compromised anyway, but I'm pretty sure most people know, like I do myself. I'm already probably on someone's radar because I mentioned fascist reform, even ICE, like in America, Israel. I mentioned so many things, I'm most likely on someone's radar. At this point, not the government or someone. And I don't give a shit. Yeah, I don't really fucking care. I'm doing the right thing, that's all that matters. I'm calling this shit out for what it is. Yeah, come hell, high hell. I'm ready for it. And that's what you have to realise at the end of the day. Same with people who are just following ICE. Like, you have to understand that you can get out of this. And you can do the right thing. And even though you're going to be affected by it, you're going to be punished, you're going to be condemned. At the end of the day, it's better to make up for your mistakes. It might take quite a few years to do, maybe even decades, but at the end, it's better you're just a good person at the end of the day. Not someone who used to shoot up fucking immigrants. And then innocent US citizens, obviously. There's just so many better things to be in the world, and that's the point I'm getting to. But as for censorship itself, one of the things a lot of these people in ICE don't realise is they're essentially the next in line. They're going to become slaves for a morally and just unjustly corrupt industry. Like, it's just insanely corrupt. This is why it's so fucking important to make change. As I said, it's just a danger to even be in ICE at this point. Because the targets are on their head. Again, we're heading towards literal civil war. But people are just gonna fucking die. Because, again, ICE sucks. Nobody likes ICE at this point. They've got such a bad reputation. I don't see any way out of it. Other than leaving. But the other thing is, that's what I remember now. I was going to mention, oftentimes when you hide behind power, it means you're hiding something yourself. It's very much true. I think the people who are least transparent about things are the biggest danger to society. I'm just going to say that outright. There are reasons that people keep things secret. I certainly have my own. But that's because people are not willing to face it and not face the consequences. Like, people are not ready for honesty, and that's one of the big problems that's also bred by something like ICE. It's like, for example, if like the Charlie Kirk shooter was actually a person who was a Democrat, who was actually anti-ICE, everything, and then came forward, it's like, there are a lot of people, including Democrats themselves, who just wouldn't sort of accept it. It's just, so I'm just laughing at this Final Fantasy situation. This character is just AFK. Oh, okay. Big attacks. Yeah, like, it's crazy how bad of a situation ice can create for not just like the people involved, but the entire country, for the entire world. Because this is what contributed to it. This is why they want censorship. They don't want ICE to be branded as a terrorist group, because people are calling it that, and it is a terrorist group. This is the other problem. But when you start to censor this, when you start to censor what people's perceptions are of these things, it becomes a problem. I'm not going to censor people for saying autistic people are evil. I'm going to respond to them. I'm going to show them how they're wrong. And at most, I would actually put at the forefront where that is, like, for example, an official health source. I'd try and get it on there. Try to get more response on there. Especially if it has higher evidence. But then you've got dishonest people who won't even admit to these things and will just constantly like deflect things. And they just stop at nothing to change that, which is annoying. So it's like, there's so many shitty situations there which we can change with just simple changes of lifestyle, habit, or mind. There's a lot of different ways to change. People who doesn't stand that's like stupidly important. There's no fucking world without peace, and over time, because of the industrial revolution, this is where it gets more fucked up. Like, the stronger the weapons, the stronger the power, the more devastating the consequences. I don't know if somebody's already made that quote, but this is inherently true. For the years I've been around the internet and looking into politics, where it has come up anyway, I haven't seen it all the time. Even like history, you learn this. And the industrial revolutions enabled for some really shitty situations. It allowed for devastating consequences. I think back to things I learned in history from World War II, like Germany's concentration camps, the various like other wars in the world, like Vietnam, even the recent Iraq war, which I haven't done much research into. It does seem like it's not based on much other than 9/11. I think it was Iraq, I could be wrong. But, you know, even something as early as the atom bomb on Hiroshima, like, devastating as fuck. Well, there just simply aren't any words to describe how horrible that was. And yet, you can't really come back from that. That's going to be forever ingrained in history. That's probably one of the worst things a country could ever do, other than Germany. Obviously did the worst thing. But it's like, you have to learn from these mistakes, you have to be better than the rest. Because at the end of the day, it's not good to have a look like that. But it also teaches the wrong lessons. It teaches censorship. People don't want to be branded as terrorists, essentially. You know, Reform in the UK, who are certainly going this route of the US, they definitely seem like they could become terrorists, for sure. They're literally a terrorist party, like Trump is, essentially. And that's a danger to everyone. It's not just the UK. It spreads everywhere. And think about all the sites that maybe come from the UK that could be controlled by a party like Reform. Again, you have to expect some pretty devastating consequences with that sort of power. The stupid thing is people don't realise that this power is just absolutely pointless. It doesn't do anything for the world, it doesn't better your life, it doesn't better anyone's well-being or anything. It doesn't do anything. They think this control does something, but all it does in the end is it makes a select few richer and the rest poorer. Even the people below the line of like rich, like even middle class, technically speaking, will become poorer. I could be wrong on that, but I don't know, the current living situation seems like that's the case. I'm definitely low income, and I'm definitely unable to afford a lot of things. Like, fuck, what was my last order on a place like Amazon, which I'm trying to avoid, but again, it's tough because there's not really any fucking places to get these sort of things in controlled place. So I could do a search. I have searched before and it's not come up with things. Let's see it. Yeah, some of this essential, not essential, but too small of a price, so it's not really big impacts. Sort of essential, sensory issue, essential, sort of essential. Uh, yeah, I'd say it's essential because it's like my career, my music. I look through the order history. Somewhat essential, again. Not that essential, but again, it's good for my situation though. Not essential, sort of essential. Like, yeah, it's just, again, all of these, it's like 80% essential, 10% sort of needed, and like 10% obviously treating myself. And so this does demonstrate the fact that we just can't afford anything. People might think that I'm just spending money for myself, on myself. But that isn't true. I try to donate money whenever I can to other people. I try to give away things to other people. The other day I gave my fucking housemate a soy chocolate milk. For some reason he wanted it, so it's like, okay, right, can I have that then? I don't really mind. It's just using it for my breakfast, but okay. Yeah, it often comes down to that, and financial situations get affected by these scummy laws and censorships. Yeah, I don't know what else to add, but at this point, it's ridiculous if people don't fucking listen at this point. It's so dumb. This entire situation. Yeah. I don't get it. I wish people would fucking change it already. So many good things you could be doing for the world, and people just choose to destroy it. And also got to figure about this because of COVID. And you change your lifestyle so we don't have another fucking COVID. It's simple, but people don't want to do it because it sacrifices too much. No, boy, what's the fucking sacrifice? And I think people need to look it up and live it. That's what I think needs to happen. I do this pretty much on a daily basis. I sacrifice my fucking dignity just to live here. That's why I'm so fucking nuts. But I don't know, trade-off probably worth it. So, survival, I suppose. Yeah, I better move on. Got stuff to do. Well, it seems to have happened, question mark. So, the Epstein files seem to have been released a lot more now, and uncensored this time, which is interesting. Now, I found this out through Most Critical, something you may know him as Pink MC, or for some reason Hunger Games. I actually don't know where that came from. Anyway, he's already done some digging on this, and discovered that a lot of big names out there are in the Epstein files, which is not surprising, but some I didn't really expect, like Bill Gates. Like, what the fuck? Like, it does just get more and more fucked as it goes along, and at this point it just wouldn't surprise me if we find out that there are, like, big names from other places not even related to politics in there. You know, again, the fact it could be a corporation, it could also be actors, it could also be people who created something, like, it could be anyone. You know, it's just out in the air at this point, and obviously it depends on what they've done there. I think that's the most important thing to point out. But it's almost scary to think about, and I thought this was another distraction because of the recent murder by ICE, because it didn't seem that way with the previous files. It seemed like a way to get people of that topic, and ideally we should be keeping both in mind when we're discussing this, because it's important. And I really do not think we should ignore one problem just to address another. Just address both. It's simple as that. For every time you mention the Epstein files, mention the murder of, I think his name was Alex, my bad if I got the name wrong, mention the murder of the innocent woman before him. There's so many people who've been killed by ICE, it's just insane. But, that's why we need to keep this alive, essentially. To keep calling it out, keep mentioning it, getting the relevant people exposed and in trouble if we can. I think that's really important. Because I don't think we'll have a just world when injustice is allowed to happen like this. That's really what it is, and what Republicans and far right and fascists do not understand is when you let injustice occur, it can happen again. And one of the things I sort of theorised the moment I saw Trump get into power was, because apparently I did somehow forget it, but 2016 was actually bad for Trump. Well, not bad for Trump, it's bad for people who voted him. And, I almost forgotten about that until I watched South Park episodes and realised that a lot of these sort of parallel what's happening now, a lot of the things in these episodes do. It's just kind of scary. But the problem is when you let someone get away with so much, it ends up creating a bad fucking example for everyone else. Because suddenly other countries start feeling like, we could protect our own pedophiles and child rapists for some reason. I know Israel are doing that, and they're obviously involved in this somehow. Literally mentioned in the emails that Trump was compromised by Israel. That doesn't surprise me. Jesus Christ. I don't even know what to say at this point. Again, injustice somewhere allows for injustice to happen everywhere. Because the more someone gets away with something, the more people think they can. It's a dangerous thing to set. Really, a dangerous precedent, I guess it's called. Sorry, my voice fucked up there for a second. I really don't know what to say about this because this is not my specialty of a topic. It's sort of important to discuss the moral implications of this and just how important it is for us to bring notice of this and also just bring justice. But obviously the thing that I have to make a big point of here when it comes to justice is you have to be absolutely fucking certain without a single doubt. Because I think when there's a doubt levied against you, and especially with higher evidence, that means there's a problem. Because you can't just go out there, obviously, enacting justice just because you're angry about something. That's essentially terrorism. And that you'll know better than the person doing it. And your motives are completely different, obviously. But there are still bad motives in the end. But the motive in the end should be to obviously bring the relevant punishments, the relevant justice, as I said, to these people. Because you can't trust the law to do it anymore. They've allowed it to happen. They're not punishing anyone for what they've done. So who's left? That's the public. So obviously things have to be done. But again, you have to read up on the things you're actually trying to enact justice on. So I think in the case of Epstein files, as much as I hate to mention it, look up what a paedophile is, look at the studies on it, and then you'll have to find a way to enact justice that way. A lot of people do not understand what a paedophile is. Simple as that. I guess over 90% of the population probably doesn't understand it. I guarantee you even more don't even know what paraphilia is. Again, we get into this dangerous territory of enacting justice over a misunderstanding, which in a sense makes you a criminal, because there is no fucking justice in that. It's like, oh, I killed someone for overhearing them saying that they love their children like so much that they treat them as like something fucking that sounds creepy. And then it turns out the context is actually they have a really strong bond. They have a really close relationship, as a family does. It's like, oh, we just killed him as a man. Like, great. I'm not saying that, obviously, Epstein people are innocent, anyone involved with that cunt. But it very much is the case that there's a difference between what people like Epstein are doing and obviously this, as I've made up, his father are doing. It's so fucking stupid how some people act these days. It's literally emotion first and then fact later, but even then, fact doesn't always come after. So it's a bit of a slippery slope and it's quite dangerous. So I don't know what to add here. As I said, justice is important. Equal punishment is important too. It's just a matter of being correct in it. So one ages well. That's probably one of the less prioritised things at this point because cultures change over time. But secondly, it has to just make sense. You know, I think when I say age as well, it's more like if we're looking at this in 10, 50 years time, and it needs to have stood at its own grounds. Same way we dealt with Germany in World War II, for example. You know, as much as war is a fucking horrific thing, the right thing to do was to address that as soon as possible. And so we did. And yeah, I guess we won in the end for a good reason. Probably saved a lot more people from death. A lot have already died, unfortunately. So there's probably some hesitation there as well, that's the thing. I'm pretty sure there's a third thing I was going to add here. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, that's my thoughts on the Epstein files, and obviously something that just needs to happen. Again, when you can't trust the law, you have to trust your heart, essentially. But that's really important to bring up. I don't know if I've already discussed this, but people think that the heart is like a theoretical thing, and it is in the way that we sort of perceive it. It literally is something that we made up. It's a thing you see in fictional stuff all the time when people have strong emotions or convictions about something. They know something in their heart, and yeah, again, this is my own heart speaking, literally. Technically, it's like part of the mind, or maybe even your gut. Like, they're pretty closely linked. So I know it could be like in your gut, but this is what I'm thinking. I'm not seeing. Not saying that obviously justice doesn't need to happen. It definitely does. But I'm worried that people will go too far, or at least go to the wrong lengths to enact it, which itself is dangerous, obviously. And that's the biggest worry here. It's like I don't want people to enact justice to become worse than the people they're obviously using it against. It's as simple as that. That's why I'm so bored with this. Anyway, we'll move on from now. This topic. Hopefully nothing else comes up. But it seems like it will anyway, because yeah, it's a shitty situation. Obviously Trump is in the Epstein files, I'll be surprised. Let's move on. I can't remember if I've ever talked about this, but I probably have, so you can ignore it. But it relates to relationships again. And as I said before, I'm not really considering one still. And I did sort of get reminded of something that kind of interested me about it, about how certain people do not treat the relationships properly, and essentially let one person do all the work whilst the other lays around. And it's go both ways really. I think it's more common that the men just lays around. Unless it's like hard work, which I can understand. Within enough, it gets very personal because that's the situation that sort of divorce like parents to an extent, but not entirely. It's like both working for the most part, I think. And yeah, just the amount of time I could have been spent essentially wasn't. I think when it comes to that sort of thing, people have to be empathetic towards each other. And especially in a relationship, where that's even more important. You really cannot just skim over this. It is so important to have a balance of tasks and chores when it's possible to do so. If you're working shorter shifts, then maybe you should be helping out. But if you're working longer, obviously, you deserve a bit of a rest. It's something that's just inherently true about these things. And especially with mental health as well, it adds some factor to it. I'm sort of reminded of this from the Triforce podcast, all things the Triforce mailbag rather. That's the musical episode 67. Oh god. Didn't realise. Fuck. I've been trying to avoid it so much. But anyway, it's that funny number. But they, about 29 minutes in, 29 minutes in, they get an email from someone with a supposed relationship, and they seem to have problems with the task. I haven't actually heard the full story yet, but I'll listen to it after. But it reminded me of something about this. M, as people know him now, used to bring this up from time to time. It's like, he said, I like the person who can cook for others and himself. It's a nice sort of complimentary thing. It's a sort of weird gimmick with this guy. It wasn't nice all the time, but sometimes you can come up with something nice to say, and I wish I could, because I'm not really that social. It's hard to say things I mean. Sometimes it comes across rather the wrong way. I really only do things in response because I'd just rather not speak all the time. It's just not possible for me to do either. Or to speak, that is. Yeah, people should be having balanced relationships. I literally do not understand why this is such a hard thing for people to wrap their head around. I think a lot of people can end up expecting a lot more than they actually get in a relationship, and there are a lot of things that contribute to that. It could be upbringing, it could be societal, demands, whatever it is. Because it used to be quite common for essentially women to become housewives in 60s, 50s, long before that too. It's just normal. But also now we're so free with that sort of the way that women can be, that it doesn't actually have to be the case anymore. I mean, I think there's still a long way to go, because there's still a lot of problems around that, such as workplace harassment, discrimination, just outright denying the fact that women go through more things than men on a daily basis. And I've often said this before, it's like, I don't think I'd ever want to be born a woman. I'll just say it outright. It sounds harsh, but to be born into that situation, I don't know if I'd still be around. It's just too fucking difficult. It's actually life on hard mode. Yeah, just fuck that. What else was I getting into anyway? I can't remember. Fuck. No, it's just completely gone. Great. I was gonna mention something. Oh yeah, that's it. It's about relationship compatibility. I think it's really important to bring this up because not many people seem to wrap their heads around this, and I think it's a bit dangerous, the fact that people don't. Because when it comes to relationship compatibility, you also naturally think, like, oh, it's probably just two people fit together, then that works, but that's not always the case. I think sometimes people can overestimate how having someone that's like you is good for a relationship. It's something I've kind of noticed in my time. I haven't actually had any autistic partners, but then again, I probably had one similar. But I don't want to see my exact likeness in someone because that would just be boring. That'd be uninteresting. You'd have nothing in the relationship. There'd be no depth. You'd like literally nothing. So it just gets really frustrating. When I think about where I'd be if I was to have a partner at old age, be it guy, girl, non-binary, anyone. I want to be imagining myself being able to have conversations about the, well, not just the past, but having conversations about memories, childhood, and whatever, and even interests. I think interests probably more important. So I might be a fantasy nuthead, which I pretty much am. I like fantasy. I like nuts. But my partner might be a sci-fi nerd. It's like, okay, we can introduce each other to these things. Like, I'll show you Freerun, you show me Star Trek. Like, I'm open-minded like that, and I actually do want to try Star Trek, by the way. I dread how long it's going to take, but I'll try it. Give it a good try. Yeah, like, that's the thing. It's not an easy situation. But having a partner with those differences, rather than you can have political differences, well, you can't actually. That's the thing I think I'll probably tell people apart. The political differences would obviously probably lead to bad things. I can't see that ever working out, and even on personal opinions on things. I think if you're open-minded, I think that's probably a good start, even if they are disagreeable. I think that does mean something. So about compatibility, though, specifically, I do think there are cases where people just have to admit that you can't have a relationship, and I've had to come to terms with this myself. So I sometimes look back and think, like, do I envy my last relationships, or do I regret them? Do I miss them? Or do I even hear about relationships online and think, is it something that I'm jealous of? Is it something that I want? And I end up coming to the conclusion that I don't actually need one. In fact, I'm so busy in my life that a relationship in itself will become pretty burdensome. That's just how it would go. I just don't think it would be that beneficial. It's not really just about the benefits anyway, but it's obviously about helping someone, making them feel good. It's about mutual relationships rather than one-sidedness, and that one-sidedness obviously is a toxic relationship trait. Being obviously helpful towards each other and supportive, all that sort of stuff is important. But I think when it starts to go wrong, it's obviously a sign that perhaps relationship compatibility is a thing. So you just don't mingle with people, and especially nowadays, it's so hard to meet someone and get along because the way the world is, there is no room for error. In fact, so many people are sick and tired. There's just literally no way for people to be safe in a relationship, let alone sustain one. And I think that's also one of the biggest kicks in the nuts that you can get. Ovaries, I don't know. I don't know the female equivalent, so sorry. An intersex equivalent. It's literally the biggest problem I think today Yeah, we got incel'd because people are just so insecure about their experiences. And as obviously as the loneliness pandemic, people start to blame anyone else but themselves, which is also like a sign of narcissism, I guess. And it's also a problem. There's way too many narcissists out there, and people need to stop dating them. It's one of the most important things I could suggest. Because when you get the narcissist, when you accept them, that they become narcissists. So don't do that. You end up like him, starting to threaten people with severe mental disabilities, and yeah, it's not nice. Yeah, I suppose the other thing is like mental health. Actually, it goes deeper than that. It's not really like physical health problems because there are people who get into relationships despite physical disabilities or issues and still end up fine. And a lot of the times there are doubts about that, but people still end up fine despite it. Yeah, when it comes to mental health, it's more complicated because there's obviously a lot to consider with people's minds and their behaviours and even just their specific wants and needs. I think my biggest problem about being in a relationship would be, as I discovered in my sort of third relationship, I think it was, yeah, third relationship ever. It's like my OCD and my anxiety. There's just a lot of different issues, and it started to get into this worry about maybe my partner's cheating on me or something because she's not talking to me. Like literally didn't know. And that was like one of the biggest signs to me that we're just not compatible. And at the end of the day, I think I'd just be far happier with like fucking hook up for like the things I wanted anyway in a relationship. Other than also having someone to support, someone to talk to, it's just also having someone to interact with. And when I realised I don't actually need to go into a relationship for that, it's like, oh, already know. That's actually good. I suppose the other thing is like what I talked about before about how relationships become very ownership or very property driven, like for lack of a correct term. It's when you see your partner or someone else sees you as their property because you're now in a relationship and you must obviously respect that. And you sort of worry about losing them, but that's a bigger problem of like society, I think. I think people need to just come to accept and understand that the world just doesn't operate like that. People are different, and those differences will create, say, wider gaps, or can shorten them for sure, but, you know, wider gaps. I'm fucking losing my train of thought for some reason. It's probably because I got IBD, it's playing me up now. I haven't had a proper shit for days, so that's not helpful. Yeah, I'm not sure what I was going for there. But yeah, I suppose you have different needs and wants in a relationship too. It's going to be different for everyone. Now, my third relationship, I was literally considering getting a passport and going to see my partner. I was there at the time. And I did actually get a passport for the first time. I never had one before, never been on vacation. It was good to get some ID, and unfortunately, I had long hair at the time. So I didn't look like a fucking creep, which is not good. Do regret taking that, but maybe there's a way I can update it. Yeah, like, it's crazy how far you go, and there was also a relationship that made me stop being vegan initially, because I was vegan back then. It's sort of a realization of something that actually was incorrect. About obviously events already happening, like, you know, animals killed for food for some reason, even though it doesn't need to happen. Already having happened, and then that being the justification, even though it's a pretty stupid argument because it's supply and demand. That's the thing that was missing from it. It wasn't really addressed. And in the end, I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go back to eating meat. Fuck it. And I didn't like meat, so I went back to being a vegetarian. Just an entire fucking ordeal. But I did that all for the sake of a relationship, and that's the other thing. It isn't just compatibility, it's also just desperation, I suppose, and also just like, what the fuck are you willing to do to go through it to see your needs like met? It's kind of why I think there's a danger with how certain things are treated in the world. Like, for example, I could be wrong, but I reckon a lot of the times there's like sexual assault. It's because people haven't been lucky enough to meet someone who can accept them and obviously go through with that. You know, even my own situation, when I've interacted with people on like dating apps and obviously gay dating apps and hookups apps and stuff, I was just never lucky with that. I had people who wanted to meet, but I didn't have people who wanted to speak, and that's the bigger issue. I didn't even know if I could trust these people. And there are even guys with like kids, and I was like, okay, now this is making me really uncomfortable. Because I'm just like, you have a family, you want to go and meet people to sleep with. Like, that's not a good fucking parent. I'll just be honest. You get like having a boys' night out, sure, do whatever you want there. Like, it doesn't fucking matter, but at least get your kids babysat. Like, it's so fucking weird. Like, it just doesn't make sense. That's also like put me off it as well. Not that specific scenario, but it has many occasions come up like, oh, just go right to fucking. I've been tempted, but I don't know. It's not really what I feel safe with. Because there's so many dangers around it anyway, I was just been like, no. I'd rather get to know you first and then decide if we want to. And it turns out, everyone I ever tried to get to know within like the first few weeks, like, just ghosted me. So it shows like the priority there of these sort of people, and that means you also really don't want to incentivize them or interact with them. It's pointless. It's a fucking joke. That's where it gets you. So there's no point in that. That is seriously really bad stuff. So that's why I just gave up on it as well. The fact there weren't any men who were willing to stick with me, and even then there was like only one that did for quite a few weeks, and then I just thought, you know what, this is getting too weird, because it's just like constant sexual behaviour on top of a bit of socialising. It's like a means to an end sort of thing. Meanwhile, there are people that I even know on Discord and still speak to who are actually decent people. You know what? Like, if they're available, then fuck it. They're good friends. You know, those are the sort of people I'd rather interact with. That's because obviously, on top of knowing them, we have experience, we have history, and because we also have all that, it's more meaningful. It's like, I don't really get the logic behind a lot of these things. And again, you don't need to get into a relationship just to have these interactions. You don't even have to exactly have a relationship to have, like, even like, I don't know if it's not the correct thing, but I'm pretty sure people can help you out with certain tasks. I don't know, cleaning the house maybe, or giving you some, I don't know. It varies. But it's like, it's not restricted to a relationship. It's just about meeting the right person, the right people. And also them being decent people to begin with. But that's stupidly important. So I don't know what else to add here, but my throat is getting hurt, I'm getting tired. So I need to move on, I think. Yeah, it's been an interesting sort of topic, but that's what I'm thinking anyway. New relationships. you have to have a compatibility, otherwise it's just not worth it in the end. I suppose it sort of relates to another South Park episode that I saw just a few days ago. It's like Heidi and Cartman getting together. Oh, sorry, that's a spoiler, but anyway, they get together. And it's like a toxic. It starts off okay, but then it gets toxic. You know, Eric is like the most antisocial motherfucker there is. Like, he's just a bad kid. He's so fucking bad. And yeah, he's able to get into a relationship, but, you know, that's kind of the strange thing with that. I'm even watching the post-COVID specials where things actually do change from what I've noticed. I have a theory, but I'm not sure about it yet. But it's kind of like, yeah, people like that shouldn't be in relationships. And that's where there is an incompatibility. You know, if you're apathetic and if you're always bullying people and shit, being nasty, that's not a good example for the children. It's a good example for your partner, obviously, and the partner would probably be disappointed depending on who they are. Even if it's another antisocial person, it's not in your best interests either. Weirdly enough, this is like one of the few cases where you can say, and other people can say, none of you should be in a relationship. Like, you should just stop fucking being together because you shouldn't have relationships to begin with. It's just that dangerous to the world, and also you hurt each other, you hurt other people. It's just a consistent problem. Arguably, there's a case to be made for getting therapy, probably, but I don't know if that would make you functional in a relationship. That's the problem. Anyway, I'm gonna move on, so let's go. So I can't remember if I made this talking about this in South Park. Let me check things briefly. I can't see anything. No, I don't think I did. Well, I did talk about it. But there was an episode of South Park that I decided not to talk about, and then so I decided to, and I think I did mention it briefly. Like education over enraged, but I want to talk about it more directly and why people misinterpreted the episode, it seems. Like complete idiots, it really proves things. Ironically, it's like the Simpsons effect with like Lisa. People literally don't understand why she's there. And only intelligent people seem to understand it, which is, yeah, it sucks. I'm talking about the episode where Heather Swanson shows up. And for those unfamiliar with the episode, it's about how Vice Principal Strongwell is going to a strongwoman composition, and for some reason there is a trans athlete and she's made aware of it. And she's accepting of it, and then the supposed trans athlete comes on, and it's literally someone who literally started identifying as woman 2 weeks ago. And yeah, like you can imagine what they depicted her as. I can tell you now, she didn't look much like a woman, I'll just be honest. But my problem with this episode is it does portray the trans sports issue in such a way that it might lead people to think that actually this is a criticism against trans people. Like they literally think trans people looks like this, but I don't think that's what they actually believe. So if you looked at an episode before that where there was that episode where Eric got his own toilet by identifying as transgender, it's a different story. And I think they did that better to an extent. Because it's like they actually acknowledged that people who have issues with trans people with enough standards, it's just kind of ironic as well, could go to the not normal bathroom. And, you know, they had a separate bathroom for these people. And honestly, it was a great episode for that reason. I certainly liked it, admittedly confusing as a message, but it worked. I think I got it. But the issue with this Heather Swanson one is, it really did feel like it was actually trying to make a point about how anyone could just identify as something compete in sports, and at the time, like, this was a topic that people were discussing. Like, I can't lie and say that they weren't, that you were. And, you know, it's kind of hard to talk about because unless you've actually read up about it, you don't actually know what you're talking about. Because people think it's as simple as just saying, I'm a woman, I want to compete in a women's sport. That's not actually how it works, and current studies suggest that this isn't actually how it happens. You know, transitioning involves a process of losing muscle fat, losing, I think, even to the top, like some energy, I think it's one of the symptoms. It's been a while since I've read up on this, it's like been a year or two since I last looked. But there's like a ton of studies and sources out there literally explaining how transitioning involves not just identifying but also treating the transition. So literally having a transition where all the relevant medication is involved and people are able to transition into, well, womanhood. And the problem with the Heather Swanson episode in South Park is obviously the first thing there, which anyone with half brain could even realise, is the fact that she only transitioned 2 weeks ago. She is not transitioned. That is obvious. And it doesn't take that long. Well, it takes a long time to transition, rather, but seriously, this is what people have taken away from it. Are you kidding me? So if my faith in humanity can get any worse? But that's what's happening there. And, you know, it's an issue. Like, nobody who's just recently, obviously, confessed that should be allowed to compete. Well, not confessed, but identified, that's the right term. It's as simple as that. You don't just transition or identify, rather, and then go into it. And then it turns out there was a YouTube video that South Park themselves actually uploaded. I advise you don't look at it, because it is a bit trigger warning-y, but people are saying exactly what you might think. Saying like, oh, this is so relevant today, or oh, this just happened to me in Texas or something. It's one of them I saw. Yeah, people literally didn't get the message, which sucks. And even then, I saw until the end of the episode as well. I saw it all the way through, where obviously PC Principal was actually trying to basically understand this, and it turns out it was Strong Woman's ex. So it seemed like a thing with malicious intent, and then at the end, spoiler obviously, they decide to get Heather Swanson back by having schoolgirls essentially compete against her in a board game situation to prove that actually, you know, you might identify as a woman, but you're not as good as us, you're not as good as the little girl. So it's like she just needs to be put in her place, essentially. Ever, that is. So that was kind of the point there. It's like an embarrassment, obviously, because Eric was obviously taking her side in the end. So like, you know what, let's go start our own club. You know, how obvious does it need to be for people to realise that the message there was how someone who exploited their position of identifying as a woman and essentially gaining the trust and respect of people, supposedly, is doing malicious things. Like, obviously behind the scenes, and like, the fact they're allowed to compete to begin with, without any sort of fucking actual transitioning. It's just absurd. And yeah, like, people might say, like, oh, you can't make up rules about how trans people can't compete until X amount of years they've transitioned, but that is actually how it has to work, unfortunately. We have to find a middle ground here. Because in reality, say this stuff does happen, we can't be allowing it to happen, because that's going to cause problems. It's going to cause controversy, not just for trans people is also just going to cause just a massive fucking mess in terms of actual competition and scoring and who knows what. Because there are risk factors, yes. It's unfortunate, but there is. There was something else I was going to say here. Can't remember what it was. You know, it's really important. I mean, this needs to be addressed properly. Not in a quick, like, oh, you like a guy, fuck off. There actually just needs to be a middle ground. It's like a time of transition, how long it takes for. Obviously, when you identify and you transition, that's the important part. You can't just have identify and then compete. That's stupid. I think even trans people will admit that, and myself, being non-binary, I do agree with that. Yeah, it's a bit stupid that someone can identify, although it doesn't really happen, that's the thing. People think it does, but it doesn't. And you also need to provide identification, that's the other thing. It's like not just identify, it's like identity. Like, it's not hard to wrap your head around. Unfortunately, with the way the current politics are, it's kind of difficult to even get an identification for that matter. Yeah, to nobody's surprise, though, some people are just too stupid to understand the episode. I could have misinterpreted it, maybe, but I don't know. Like, what if I look it up? Like, South Park Heather Swanson episode. Like, let's see. South Park Board Girls is the episode. Because, like, really enough, even though Heather Swanson is like a. Guess. I don't know what to call it, like. Oh, fuck, is it the April or the people? I can't tell. But you got this other plot as well, where obviously the ending ties into it. I'm interested in what like the trivia is and stuff. So let's see. Apparently PC Principal's name is Peter Charles. Not sure how true that is. Blade Jacket based on Macho Man Randy Savage, I sort of guessed that. Such as the first episode in season 23 of Randy Marsh doesn't appear. A Strong Woman is a parody of the Oda song, that's it. It's knowledge. No. Pretty much nothing about Hitler Swanson, which is interesting other than the Macho Man. Wait, Blade Jacket. Oh. Okay, well, that mixed up, I think. Maybe? Oh, I don't know. I'm confused, but there's nothing in the trivia about this. Yeah, like, again, the takeaway for me from this episode is there do need to be restrictions. That's the unfortunate reality. I think because people exploit positions also as humans, speaking of, not fucking angels. Like, no human is an angel, nobody is. It's so important to even bring that up. And yes, it may be controversial, even me saying this now, in 2026, all times. It's still a topic that needs to be discussed. And it's just not good to have an entire minority's reputation ruined by, well, not just a South Park episode, but the fact that this can happen. It does happen, but it doesn't happen frequently. That's the thing. I guarantee you that people who are obviously looking out for this, like transvestigating, they will find problems, and we've had this in recent years, like the fucking Olympics. Remember when that boxer came on and actually defeated the competition? Like, she wasn't even a trans woman, and people were calling her trans. And it was like a fucking absolute load of shit. It was complete bigotry. And they're saying because she looks more masculine than feminine. It's like, oh, she must be a man. Are you fucking kidding me? That's how stupid people are now. They use looks to identify someone. That's just ridiculous. And that ironically is what the episode did well too. Like, even though there's malicious intent behind obviously being an ex and seemingly want to beat women at things, you know, you can't judge a book by its cover, even if they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Here, obviously, someone being malicious, you can tell, trying to stomp all the competition to either win points or just do something like it. Depends. There's many different motivations for that, but I'm guessing it's a more domestic case. Someone's trying to have the upper hand over just entire, what do you call it, entire gender of women? I don't know. The opposite's true as well, but yeah. I'm trying to have the upper hand. For some reason my volume keeps fucking up on these things. Getting Discord notifications are really loud, it keeps resetting every fucking time. Yeah, I recommend people check out this episode, Bored Girls. It's kind of interesting. But again, avoid any sort of comment sections with this shit because it's quite depressing. You know, I get the episode or the entire series now rather is like mocking political correctness, but at the same time it's like they take the middle ground on these topics rather than like a straight up, oh, this is wrong. Like nobody actually called out Heather on this shit about being the ex of strong woman, and even about what the motivation was to even do this, like how transitioned are you? Just why I say there should be a restriction on something like this. People need to understand there is a limit and there's a line that you just do not cross. And the line, obviously, how long have you been transitioned and how strong are you, basically. You know, it should be the criteria, and there should be ways to measure that. I think that's stupidly important. Obviously, people misinterpret it, so yeah, that's what I think of that episode. I thought they address it. I don't know if they're going to go more that route these days, it's hard to say. But, you know, given they've made everything satirical anyway, it's just like, yeah, it's whatever. You know, it's far better than Mr. Garrison gets a new vagina. But I think I prefer the other trans episode for this, in terms of representation to an extent, but also just a message at the end. Whereas this one doesn't really have much of a message, it's just like, oh, toxic masculinity kind of bullshit, literally, disguised as a woman. That's all it is. Yeah, that's the episode. You don't really need to watch it other than that. So yeah, let's move on. Or transition. Depends. So, I believe I forgot to do a fucking review on season 23 and 24. I've got some interesting things to say. Because these are different in South Park. A fair bit different, at least 24 is. The start of season 23 is obviously towards the end of the Trump term, which is interesting itself. It starts with episode 1, Mexican Joker. I've got the ratings here. I thought it was a good episode. It's obviously tackling a bit of a sensitive topic in the sense that, you know, immigrants, they exist, unfortunately, but, you know, there's not much you could do about that. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have immigrants. In fact, everyone would just be able to live as they please without harming anyone else, obviously. But yeah, it's a good episode. I think it tackles it okay. A bit in a joking way as well, because it's obviously called Mexican Joker. It's very good. Episode 2, it's a good episode. It's quite funny in areas. It's definitely entertaining. Episode 3, and so we'll talk about season 23 if I haven't mentioned. I've forgotten. Episode 3, Shots. It's a very good episode, just entertaining. It's pretty much all it was. It revolves around Eric, which is it's funny in its own way. as you can expect with Son about Eric. Episode 4, I've talked about this episode. It's an okay episode, in my opinion. I think it's good, because the message is a bit confusing. At the same time, it's about plant-based meat. It's kind of obviously I don't eat animal products or anything. And this episode, I think, makes both fun of it and also makes a good case for it as well, because it actually had some facts in it. So it's certainly worth a watch. There's episode 5, which I thought was a good episode. It was funny. Integrity Farms Halloween special. Certainly different, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, kinda. Episode 6, confusingly called Season Finale, if no it's not. It was a good episode. Very interesting idea as well. Also, sort of comes back to one of the other episodes. And there's episode 7, which is interesting. I actually made a thing about this in the topic before this, so listen to that obviously for better details. But there are some interesting things in this episode too. Other than that, the mention of a YouTube channel, certainly something. It's still going. I did look it up. The YouTube channel still exists. If I have found the right channel, that is. I'm pretty sure it is the same channel I'm thinking of. I found. In this episode 8, Third Workers. This is a good episode, but really fucking strange. This is one for the ladies. Such people it's called. Episode 9. I thought it was a okay episode. Didn't really see much point in it, other than it being a critique about how streaming services are replacing cable, and we kind of rely on streaming services now, rather than cable. Cable's just shit. Again, though, the thing with cable, I have a weird tangent about this. I grew up with things like Sky Television, and we didn't really have Review. It wasn't really a thing we invested in. We didn't even have third-party ones because everyone just had Sky. Biggest problem with Sky, other than the signal cutting out every now and then, it's quite rare to be honest, was the fact that they didn't record shit. We had to record shows that we couldn't watch because they were either overlapping or they were recording at a time we wouldn't be there. There's so many problems with Sky and just the whole box set in general. That gimmick, but yeah, I can see this episode being a critique about that, but at the same time, it's just meh. I don't really think too much of it. Then we go on to episode 10, which is interesting but good episode. It's only a bit weird. But now we get on to some really interesting ones. Season 24, episode 1, which starts the COVID specials. And I have a list of the what to watch in order, basically. Because I made sure to look at every possible stream there was to see where these took place. And basically it goes from the pandemic special to South Park vaccination special to post-COVID return of COVID. Very fucking confusing names, but sure, we'll go with it. But that's the order you watch it in, because for some reason season 24 is these, but I don't know. It's very fucking weird to me, because the Reddit I found said that these were kind of separate, which is not true. It is season 24, just to make that clear. That's why it's important to note the episode names. So, there were 2 missing from the official site, so obviously had to do some digging for that. And the 2 that are missing are basically filler, to an extent. It's all tied up a loose end in the second episode, but it did have some interesting stuff going on there. Very surprising stuff for that matter. Did find it kind of interesting. Yeah, it's like The Simpsons have already sort of done something like that. Not entirely like it, but you get to see everyone as an older character, that's all I'll say. it's just super fascinating. Also quite relevant to the scare away. Let's see. So episode 1. These are like 40 minutes long, I forgot to say that. It is a very good episode. It's quite entertaining, and I think it's one of the funniest fucking episodes of South Park out there. For fuck's sake, the stuff with Randy is just... it's so fucking funny. Like, I get that it's a tough time, but for fuck's sake. The way they just joke about this is just insane. I'm not sure whether to spoil it or not, because it's just so funny, you have to watch it yourself. And I think we're all thinking about the same scene if you have seen it. It's so fucking funny. The thing he does it in China, for fuck's sake. Then we go on to episode 2, which is something like, oh yeah, episode 1 I didn't really agree with the conclusion because of just how sour it is with how people would refusing to make changes to address the problem that caused us to begin with, which is weird. I don't know. I just felt like that was a bit of a sour note to leave on. Rather than make a change, it's just like, oh, let's cry about this. Rather than make any actual change. Episode 2, I thought was good. Wait, I didn't review it. Okay. It's a bit frustrating. I thought it was pretty good. It's a return of someone. Definitely worth watching as well, but also some interesting bits with just a conclusion there. And then that goes into the post-COVID one, which is episode 3, technically speaking. And this one is long, but it's a good episode. It goes into some interesting stuff, some interesting ideas there. And yeah, there's not really much to say about that. It's something to watch if you're bored. And then there's episode 4, fuck's sake. Which is also a good episode. So overall, I think season 23 definitely feels like it's a bit slower in my opinion. Feels like they're maybe not pacing as well or writing it as well as they could. That's what it felt like to me. But season 24 rather, it does seem to be picking up the pace here, which is definitely hopeful, and you can tell they put a lot of effort and work into this because of the pandemic and stuff, but it just allowed for so much expression and freedom, and it actually turned out really good. And also it's quite unusual seeing a character walk normally, I'll say that. It's one of the first things I've noticed with it, it's like, oh, okay, the animation budget suddenly gone up. I think that's where it happened, could be wrong. Let's see. One of the things I noted with the pandemic special is that you could tell it's recorded on a home mic. It's not, well, obviously that's a fine thing. It is quite obvious, to be fair. There's not much you could do about it though. So yeah, it's a good seasons. I guess 23 is a bit slow, but 24 was just the better one. Obviously starting to pick up the pace now, finding new ways to explore these things. So yeah, let's move on to another topic. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to get a new fucking mic, which is annoying, but that's not the topic. It's actually about something else. Somewhat important in my opinion, because it's a topic that has been a point of contention in not just my life but also other people's lives, and just in general I think it's not an uncommon opinion. And this opinion, if you haven't guessed, is about women's rights and specifically clothing. And this is also kind of a sensitive topic, because as I've experienced it personally, it seems to occur more in older people that the view is if women didn't want to get SA'd, as we call it, then they shouldn't be wearing revealing clothes. There was a point where I used to agree with that, unfortunately. But there is a more recent, more relevant, or present point, rather, where I disagree with that. And in fact, I think there is a very good case I can make, and even a phrase, that literally puts us to rest. So I want to explain, firstly, the issues around, obviously, this happening to begin with. And the idea is that if you are either physically, sexually attracted to women, the viewpoint is that people, or women rather, who dress a certain way in revealing clothes, let's say short skirt, tank top, or, extremely short shorts, and also reveal more of their body, that's a trigger for something, like being hit on, like a flirty way, or even just someone looking for a hookup. Like, it depends. Like, there's many different types of people out there who will look at that, see it as a gateway to, oh, well, I can also get into bed with this person. But that's also not how it works, and it's just, that's the reality anyway. And it is a somewhat disgusting view. It's not, I don't think it's a view that's exactly, I don't know how to word this. It's like, I think it's really just misunderstood. Because I get the point that people are trying to make, but it's used in the wrong way, where it actually just exposes yourself. And I suppose it wouldn't be the case in mine, I don't think, because mine was really more out of concern, but for other people it's like there is a motive there that is inherently wrong. It's just disgusting. And as I said, it sort of relates to the claim about SA, which is really horrible. But then I have to talk about the argument I realised about how this is essentially wrong. And it's sort of similar to, like, through the breast, was it? I can't remember what that was actually now. For some reason it's gone from me. It's like a through the chest, maybe? There's like a campaign where a bunch of women, obviously, a lot of people still do this anyway, and I support it. But there's a big campaign and societal cry for allowing women to be shirtless in public, and this was because men get away with it, being shirtless themselves. And it's sort of a point I agree on, due to the fact that we shouldn't be discriminating, because in a blazing fucking summer heat, you do not want to be under a t-shirt, like, at any point. Even though there are benefits to it, for sure, it's not really a choice to make that full length. Like, it's extremely, I guess, oppressive, that's the term. For some reason I forgot what it was. But yeah, it's like literal oppression to say that someone can't, or has to wear a t-shirt in a terrible condition. Like, it's just, terrible weather conditions or but I have to make this argument now, and this is important, so listen closely. There's obviously the whole thing with my body, my choice, and this is something I side with, obviously, because it's about women's rights, it's about protecting various values that women have, and advantages even. Like, let's be honest, there are advantages to being a woman. I don't know if it's worth the trade-off, obviously, because there are obviously worse things that happen, but there are obviously choices that women can make, and make a career out of, a life out of even. And that's certainly up to women, for sure. And that's obviously something I'm on board with. If a woman wants to become a sex worker, who are we to stop them? That's not your choice. They don't belong to you. They don't belong to anyone. We're all just individual fucking people at the end of the day. It's not your choice to make for what other people do with their body. It's just ridiculous. It's like saying that living in a bizarre scenario of someone who's like intellectually disabled can't for some reason have sexual intercourse. It's just fucking weird. Why are you deciding that for them? If they understand it and they can give consent, which they certainly can in some cases, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a thing that people have to realise, and then also we have that danger where there is the sort of moral, not so much legal ground, I don't think care about legality in this case, but in the moral ground where people exploit that position. And that's what we have to criticise, and this is where I bring up probably the greatest counter-argument to people who don't want women dressing in revealing clothes. Other than the case I made about nobody being property to anyone. It's also your mind, your choice. Yeah. Literally you can flip it. Because it works for men too. But, you know, the thing you have to realise is when your head is immediately jumping to that conclusion of, oh, it's going to cause SA, or it's just going to cause problems, it's going to make me hyper aroused, whatever. That's your fucking problem, that's your mind. You know, I can't even describe the amount of women I've seen with revealing clothing or features in the world. In the UK specifically, where I've obviously grown up. You know, it's happened since childhood. But I also have the choices I can make where I'm not over-sexualising them and I'm not even considering flirting with them. Again, it is entirely your choice, it's your mind. And the right thing to do, obviously, is to not give in to that, or to give in to desire. And that's why I bring up even something like Free the Nipple House, if I can remember it finally. But Free the Nipple, literally, I see the problem where people will look at it and think, oh my god, some nice tits or something. That's what they'll say. But in the end, that's you being perverted. There's a difference between a fucking pervert and someone who's respectful. The difference is night and day. A pervert is disrespectful, and a non-pervert is respectful. Keep it in your head, keep it in your pants. As simple as that. It's not fucking difficult, people. It's just so stupid. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's really the argument to end all arguments on that. So, yeah, like, women should be allowed to dress how they choose and appear how they choose as well. It's really not up for debate. So people need to get their head out of their asses, especially men, and start listening. So yeah, let's move on. Well, there's something I wanted to discuss that I didn't want to discuss because it's a topic for sure, but I think it needs to be said. So, I did a thing a while ago about joining a new free company, and I did, and I said I was going to explore it to see what it was like myself, just to be a bit more social, and, well, didn't go exactly as planned, as you could probably guess. Like, the problem is, my burnout is actually really linked to my anxiety, which causes me to become more indoorsy, more self-contained, I guess is the term, or isolated. It applies to real life most of all, but it applies to interactions as well, where I feel like I can't go out anywhere, I can't do anything. It's just a trap for me, and it turns out that was affecting my social interactions in game as well. And in fact, I can have meltdowns bad enough that my stress causes me to have chest pains, and over the past week or so, I've been having them non-stop, just on and off. So I don't know what to do about that, really. And like other things even contribute to my stress. Like I recently discovered the fucking door on my bathroom. There's like this curve around the frame of it, which I don't even know why it has that. It's like a bevel curve. And for some stupid fucking reason, the door is on the way near the bevel curve. Like, what? How? How do you fuck that up? I never noticed before, but that really demonstrates the incompetency. Like, fuck me. It's as if wind chimneys as a house design wasn't bad enough, but the fucking door? The beveled way, where it lets in air, lets in things you're not supposed to let in? It's a fucking bathroom. Like, this is not acceptable. Just what a load of garbage. I seriously can't believe that. That's certainly adding to my frustration. I genuinely can't get over that. But things get worse when I'm in this state of burnout. I just end up not as happy, and then I have some crazy ups when I am out of it. You know, the burnout lasts for like either days or weeks, it depends how bad it is. I think this one's been lasting for weeks now. And just as I got out of it, there was something to trigger it again. And at this point, I'm gonna stop giving a fuck about people hearing what I'm saying in my room. If they do hear me, I don't fucking care. I've very much lost a lot of the will to live anyway, just by virtue of existing. Yeah, like, I walked into the kitchen earlier. It smells of fucking rotten corpses. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that. Like, for one day it's like a gone off smell from somewhere, and I can't figure out what it was or anything. It's happened a few times, and I just can't identify it. I have no idea who it is, but it just seems to clear up at some point. Not naturally, but at some point. I don't know who deals with it, because I can't identify where the smell's coming from, because it all smells like it's coming from the same place. Which is quite a weird stark contrast compared to my heat sensitivity, where I can actually tell where that's coming from. Which is weird. So yeah, that's certainly set me off a bit, and just a bunch of stupid shit. I'm also pretty sure I use the same sponge for my. Well, I use my sponge basically. I have a separate sponge because I don't want fucking rotten corpses on that. And I think it began to smell of that, and I just realised, oh, that's probably why it smells like a dead animal, so fuck that. Let's go with that. But anyway, back to the Final Fantasy thing though. So I haven't had much luck with Free Company stuff. I think I've been to one meeting and then had one interaction. Not one interaction, but like a few interactions like throughout, like looking at the messages and just saying hi and shit. It's that's been okay itself. It's not been too difficult. Depends on how I'm feeling on the day and if I even notice it. But I don't know. It's definitely been a struggle for me. I can't really force myself to do that. Because it depends on how I'm feeling. And that's the biggest issue here. It's the biggest block to socialising that I have here. Where there could be potentially lots of great opportunities for socialising in Final Fantasy XIV. It really sucks. Genuinely, I don't know how to address it. So I'm not sure what to add with any of this, because this led me to another thing where I began thinking about potentially leaving the free company again on my own terms. But what would I do as an alternative? Because free companies do have benefits in Final Fantasy 14 obviously. They can reduce teleport costs, and they can increase XP through battle, they can increase MGP earned from Gold Saucer. I'm pretty sure there's like another one somewhere. I just can't really get used to the idea of interacting and in burnout mode. That's the problem. Like the buffs I like from free companies, and that's one good reason to stick with a free company. Just in general, like even if you don't understand the game, it's good for XP. It's good for even getting advice sometimes. I've certainly had some advice from the previous free company. It's just it is so difficult to interact. But those buffs really make it worth it in the end. That's the only issue. And I just wish I could be better. Um, so, what do I say now? Oh yeah, I was going to talk about the... Oh, what was it? Something that's gone again. Yeah, like what I'd do without free company. Essentially, I'd just make one of my own, but I'll make it quite different. And by different, I mean every free company seems to have a goal or criteria that people need to be socially active and engaging in the free company, which myself I have disagreements with. And that's only because I'm someone who is socially anxious that can do a social interaction every now and then. Like, these things have to be accommodating. People say, like, why are you playing a fucking social interaction game? Every single fucking game is a social interaction game. I don't know why people don't realise this, but there's a massive inconsistency here. Because it is a social interaction game, wherever you go. Like, just absolutely absurd. It exists. So people really need to stop pretending that it's not, because it is everywhere. Like, you have it in multiplayer games, you have it anywhere. Doesn't matter what fucking game it is. That's the point. It just happens. To nature. So, my solution to this, without having a free company, is to make a free company where there are no requirements. You can do whatever you want, you can group up, you can play with each other in more ways than one. But you could just be able to do things you wouldn't normally be able to do. Which is just ignore everything. You know, you don't need to be in the free company to be social. That's the point. That, for me, would be the selling point of my own free company. Pride itself on being social anxiety friendly. So you don't force yourself to do it, and also like-minded people. I guess that's the only thing. It's like, I call this no questions asked free company, but itself, the only sort of response that you want is you have to be accepting of people being quieter than usual. You have to also sort of help with the free company if need be. Again, like the buff system, I'm pretty sure you need to level that up and stuff. And you just don't need to do anything. There's like everything's optional. You can interact if you want to. You can bring buffs if you want to. You can invite people if you want to. You know, given that I plan on playing for 2 hours a day at a time usually now, well, not now, but when I finish my goals in the game, something I can check on. Like, I could even get a Discord, I could even check messages and stuff if I need to. Spend some time on that. You know, make a Discord obviously for it. And obviously I have the usual rules that need to be there. But I think the main thing is keeping order whilst also not discriminating against people for circumstance. The only thing I'd really intervene in really is if there's any sort of hate speech or just really negative interactions or something. It really depends, but something can happen and I'd have to address it. no doubt. So yeah. Not sure what else to add, but that's a situation I'm thinking of. I better move on because I've talked long enough, done enough as well. So, let's move on. So I wanted to talk about this. I originally tried to make something about film. Just usual shit. Just not happy with how I started. Not happy with much. Not happy at all, in fact. But I got reminded of this sort of sentiment and story over disabled parents or obviously mentally handicapped parents in some way having children, and how that's not good for the children themselves. There's so much wrong with this sentiment that it just genuinely baffles me, because this is literally coming from people who have not a single brain cell, literally. And it's also self-exposing as well. Just one of the points I did mention in the previous one. It's actually crazy that this is actually a common belief that people have. Like, why do you think people with disabilities have children? Like, what the fuck are you even thinking? Because I guarantee you, at least most of the time, people are having children because they want someone to love, someone to bring into the world, someone also they're in love with and want to bring love to, you know? Literally that. Like, they're not doing it for a malicious reason, so immediately you've already failed to make the justification about this being somehow wrong to even begin with. So it's just already failed. And we're probably going to see more issues there. The other thing is that people bring up how, as time goes on, obviously, the children will encounter things like bullying, and I did see a story about this recently, about how someone's child was unfortunately pushed to go on to an overdose and essentially die. It was apparently an accident, but I don't know if it was. It's just my theory, really. But it seems, according to what I'd read, it seemed to be about bullying for who the parent was, and the parent was disabled. Yeah, this does reveal a lot of problems about society and just the view of disabled parents. And what's strange is people don't even ban away to the invisible disabilities, where there's people with, let's say, a type of autism or ADHD, or even just something we don't even really know or understand that well, like schizophrenia. A lot of people don't really understand it. You know, there's parents like this everywhere, and you don't even realise it. The thing is, a lot of the world is actually mentally handicapped, mentally disabled, mental health issues, anything, and physically disabled. Like, it goes both ways, and they don't even realise it. So this criticism about it being bad for the children to have a disabled parent is just false. It's immediately false. Because, one, it has to be proven first that it's bad, and two, why is it a problem? That's what we need to fucking know. You know, it's almost like people saying, oh, you can't have a black parent because black parents will induce racism or something. What the fuck are you on about? Like, that's not even a justification. It's not even about the parent. That's what I'm trying to understand here. It's like, what about the parent makes you think this isn't possible? Makes you think it's bad for the children to have a parent like that? It seriously doesn't make any sense. I genuinely cannot wrap my head around this shit. And yeah, it does frustrate me. it's so obvious of a thing. So I really don't know. I think the other thing I have to mention is like where I sort of stand on this, I suppose, because you will find people who bully children based on, say, who the parent is. Like in school, there are a lot of children who bully kids based on how overweight their parents were. And I don't think this is avoidable. And then there's one of the worst things that ever happened in my secondary school, where one of the girls had a dad who unfortunately committed suicide. And guess what? His children were bullying her for that. Or his suicide. Like, can you see the problem here? You're criticising parents for bringing their child into a world where they obviously have a parent that's struggling or has struggled, and there are parents then saying, oh, you can't have a parent like that, that's not good for the children. Like, that says more about you as a fucking parent than it does them. It's literally self-exposing. You just shot yourself in the foot there. Like, sort of pun intended, I guess, but, you know, that's literally what it is. So I often have to wonder what these criticisms are, this scrutiny, whatever it is. Do you even fucking look in the mirror? There's a thing you need to understand though. There are so many shit parents out there that aren't disabled. So if we're going to stop pointing fingers at who can and cannot have children, why not the people who are fucking bad parents to begin with? It could even be yourself and you don't realise it. That's why you need to reflect on this shit. And I'm no parent. I have thought about having children at one point. Only adopting. But, you know, I know because of my issues I can't really do anything. I won't be a good parent. But it's like my own choice, and because of my own issues as well, no doubt I'll probably get rejected. But for other people, they are capable of it. There are definitely people who are similar to me who are capable of parenting. Like, without revealing too much, literally, that's been my experience. I haven't been bullied for that specifically. But yes, there are people like me, and they do end up being good parents. But I'd argue some of the worst parents are those who don't listen to the calls for changing violent behaviour or bullying in a child, or, you know, just their attitude in general, especially towards minorities. You know, in primary school and secondary school, one of the worst things that I sort of had to go through being a closeted, technically bi kid. So that's even a term. I was like bisexual back then, even like 8 years old, and I didn't even understand it. I just thought, oh, it's another boy. It's like, okay, it's got my pecker up, but that was confusing to me. I wasn't taught about anything about that, and nobody really explained it, and so I just thought it was normal. I didn't really bat an eye, I didn't really even go through with it, but then I was always told that you can only have a relationship between a man and a woman, or a boy and a girl. So I ended up following that, as that was all I was taught, which is in itself a bit of bad parenting in all honesty, because obviously it can go other ways, but I wasn't taught that. But nobody else was really taught it, and instead it was stuff like the school banning the word faggot, and, you know, that not really working anyway. Like, I don't know how you can even ban a word to begin with. And we just weren't taught anything. We didn't even have any exposure to that sort of thing. And it ended up being the case that even through the school years, like, people would be jokingly calling each other gay, and nobody really batted an eye to what that actually meant or what it actually means to someone. So it ends up coming back to the parents about how they're teaching these things. Which is why I say we need to start pointing fingers at obviously bad parents. Much like the people criticising people for being disabled and parenting. Is that somehow has a knock-on effect to children, but why then are the children bullying them for that? It makes you question things. It's not a problem with the parent, it's a problem of the fucking children. You can't actually change the parent. It's like, this is the thing. What in your right mind thinks you could fucking magically give someone with no legs or no arms, legs and arms, to make the bullying go away? But this is literally the line of logic that people have when it comes to criticising these people. Like, fuck me. Is this how unintelligent we are now? Where we literally can't even answer these questions? Because they're literally unanswerable, by the way. But we need to ask, again, where the children are getting this from, why they're bullying someone for this reason. That's the more important point here. And on top of that, we should be having teachers and parents getting involved in whatever way they can. If you're seeing this type of bullying, you need to fucking get involved. You need to change things, and if you're not paid enough, well, unfortunately there are things worse off than pay, and creating a bad future for children is definitely going to be worse off for you as well. Because they're going to be the ones who are helping you in your retirement. They're going to be the ones helping you when you're old and frail. Yeah, you're incentivizing a worse world, a worse society for them by not getting involved. I sort of argue the same thing with something like the NHS. Like, you're causing all these problems, and as a matter of protest, sure. But this protest isn't going to help anyone, and the lack of kindness we see nowadays is contributing to a lot of these problems. Like, why do you think there's so many fucking school shootings in America? Also the gun laws, but the other one is mental health issues. They don't get checked on, there's no healthcare to check on them. There is nothing. And this could happen in the UK. I'm pretty sure it does as well. So people really need to understand that, again, we have to look at the parents of these children who are bullying other children for the answers here. Because that's the problem. They are the problem. And yeah, let's also not forget there are children also with mental issues and stuff who are not at the fault of the parents. Like, the parents definitely aren't to blame for it. They do exist, unfortunately. And the only way to really change it is obviously a proper physical involvement, like literally dragging them away from the home, probably to a place where they can get real serious psychological help. Like, it's harsh, yes, but that's the only solution, as far as I know. But this is like the most violent kids. It's not like, your average hyperfixated kids just saying, "Oh, your mum's fat." No, it's literally the kid who's just beating up everyone and pushing the point home that their parent is dead or disabled or something. Like, these sort of kids who literally are not acting correctly. It's just, they need to go away. So many fucking problems like that in schools now, apparently. I don't know. So yeah, I don't really know what to add here, but that's it really. Yeah, fed up with this discussion. Really, it's the end of the discussion now, because I've already made my point. It's based on evidence, it's based in experience as well, and it's going to be hard to refute. That's really the point here. So if you already try to come into it trying to justify something that doesn't even refute what I'm saying, then pretty sure you've already lost the argument. I've thought this through a lot over the years, and this is a conclusion I've come to. So or are we just pointing at the parents of the children who are bullying the children with parents with disabilities? And not look at the source of the problem here. Instead, we look at the cause, not the source. And that's, yeah, that's how she is. Well, to no surprise, also kind of surprisingly as well, South Park covered ChatGPT. Season 26, Episode 4. For some reason, I almost forgot the episode there. Well, I'm not overall that happy with this episode. I thought it was good, but only because it was funny. But the problem with this episode is it doesn't really age that well, even though it came out just under 3 years ago. But it didn't age well because, simply put, it didn't cover enough. It's just a goofy storyline for goofy's sake, and it involves, obviously, something to do with Clyde, obviously. Most famous character from South Park, but Clyde apparently is visiting Bebe. Bebe is like completely, I guess, infatuated, is that the term, with him? But because Clyde's saying such nice things back, it's like she's really in love with him. And Wendy's a bit jealous that Stan doesn't message her like that. So she confronts Stan about that, and suddenly Stan confronts Clyde about how he does the messages, because Wendy mentioned that Clyde sends really nice messages back, and Stan's doing the old thumbs up to the emojis thing, not emojis, of text. So yeah, it shows the extent of his socialisation there. And it turns out Clyde is using ChatGPT. He puts the message into ChatGPT and gets a response back, so he can send that. And Stan decides to do the same thing. But yeah, you can see where this is going. So that was happening. And it sort of gets along, or they go along with it very well, and then they go to class the next day, I think. And it turns out that a few people in the class had gotten a good essay done. And you can probably see where this is going now. Fucking hell. So yeah, they go to class, they get their essays and stuff. But immediately, like, Stan is looking around, like, realising that this could have been, like, ChatGPT, which it was. And, you know, that's something. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's absolutely kind of crazy that that's also the plot here. So yeah, I got that ChatGPT on the work now, and they're actually not even getting caught yet. So they realise that everyone's using it, and Eric realises too. And then it turns out Butters is as well, as they get good marks on the essay they made, and they get to confront each other about it in the bathroom, usual stuff. For some reason there's a nerd kid that walks in there, but I don't really see, I say nerd, but glasses equals nerd. Me, by the way. Yeah, I don't know what the relevance is with that character. It just seemed like a way to extend the episode's time, I guess, rather than any actual meaning. But I guess they're so like secretive about talking about this, they didn't talk about it in front of that kid. Anyway, Garrison, Mr. Garrison, is ex-house, so they turn Canadian, and he's living there with Rick, obviously, as we know now, his new partner. And Rick shows him this ChatGPT thing about marking the essays with it. They got Garrison is marking, and he decides to use it. And for some reason, like Rick hits that he's using it to message Mr. Garrison because he was saying like nice messages to him, and yeah, interesting how that works. It's a pretty clever plot line though, to be honest, because that does come up later. But eventually, Mr. Mackey comes into the class and confronts everyone, saying that there are students being suspected of using ChatGPT or AI basically, and everyone's a bit panicky about this, and they do another confrontation in the bathroom. They realise someone has to stop this somehow, but they can't actually stop it. And a weird shaman guy comes in who can detect ChatGPT with a few rituals, and I think an eagle was that? I didn't actually look at what bird that was, but he has a bird called Shadowbane, I think. It's just kind of funny. I do love these depictions of these types of people. It's pretty good. But yeah, they realise they're in trouble, and somehow the guy catches the someone using ChatGPT, and it's Wendy, someone on her phone anyway. But she actually locks her in this library, goes to investigate, and Stan realizes he can use a way to actually get her out of this, so that she's not directly involved. And he can't really devise a way at first, and then he realizes he can use ChatGPT. So he writes a fucking prompt in there to seemingly make a text, or just rewrite the fabric of the universe or something, to get ChatGPT to get him and Wendy out of this, and everyone else, it seems. And it's actually the most AI fucking ending I've ever seen, and it probably was. It's just kind of funny. If they say it would be funny, and I think the funniest part for me was probably Eric calling Stan a Jew. For fuck's sake. It's like such an obvious mistake they make. Stan isn't a Jew. That's obviously why it's so funny. And he's supposed to be calling Carl Jew anyway. But it sort of ends on Stan and Wendy leaving school, and this message about blaming the AI companies for this, which, yes, it's already happening. Unfortunately, it took too long, and that's the only message I agree with in that. But the problem is, it didn't address anything else. It didn't address the justification for AI in the slightest. It was actually really disappointing, and really what people use AI for, other than to generate obviously this stuff, is images and even just a learning source, a way to learn something easier. But that's a problem because, obviously, as we know now, it takes up a lot of resources and it fucks everyone's lives because there's too much RAM. The RAM is too expensive, rather. I mean, there's not enough RAM to go around. And so we have that shitty situation. But it didn't go into the other things about it, which I thought was interesting. And given there's 2 more seasons and a few movies left, or specials rather, not movies, maybe they'll address it. But I don't know. It seems a bit weird to me that they didn't go this route of, oh, I use ChatGPT to help me learn. Like, it's weird because people use it for everything. They use it to summarize things. They use it to just do anything at this point. And not just generative images or essays. It's just anything. They use it to remove the thinking element, which was brought up in the episode, which, fair play. It does need to be brought up. But having AI do the thinking for you is a bad thing, objectively. And we are seeing the consequences of it. Just look at the Windows updates, fuck's sake. It's just objectively a bad thing. And it's really frustrating that I can't remember who wrote this. Was it Trey? I can't remember. But whoever wrote it didn't go into this aspect, and I think it was important to do so. I think it's worrying that they didn't. It's very strange. So I'm not sure what to add here, really. I suppose I could just try and run off my mouth with the idea of what I would make the episode about instead. Also, I've got Stan goes to confront Garrison about what to do when he's done something wrong, and sort of both admitting that they used AI, and Garrison realised that Rick could be using AI to respond to him, which is also pretty funny, as I said, that they come back up. Yeah, but the other route I would have gone with this is actually on the aspect of using it to help learn about something. It's like, oh, you wrote this essay on this, but you didn't use AI fully. But can you answer me this? And it's like, they can't. They can't answer you that because they've only learned the bare minimum about this topic. So that's coming back to bite them. Because they can't learn about this topic. And I think that's a really important perspective to have on this, in my opinion. My onion. So I don't know why it didn't go that route, to be honest. It's a bit disappointing from my personal point of view. Again, it could happen later, but we don't know. Also, that's more of the danger is more that when they suck you into this AI bubble, which is a bubble, let's not forget that. It was back then as well, I'm pretty sure of it. Then you're just going to be so stuck into it that you just don't see a way out. That you don't even bat an eyelid to the horrors that it can cause, that it can do to society, to do to the world. And obviously, as we've seen, like murder machines actually being legal for military operations and stuff, it's only going to get worse from there. And that's why I wish it sort of went that route. It looks like the AI narrator thing in the ChatGPT bit in the end of this episode. Definitely keep that in, but also just have a message about how people are using it. This is the other thing. Because it's not just about blaming the AI companies for having this out there, also free of charge, and it creating revenue anyway because it's funded and for some reason people use it still. I would have made it about more than that too. Because it's important to call this out what it is, and it's also the people's fault. I know people are a bit like, oh, you can't blame everyone else for doing it because it's there, it's free. Free doesn't always mean good. In my time of living, 29 years almost now, I've seen a lot of shit, and sometimes the free things aren't always best, especially in terms of digital products. It's typically where it happens. The digital products I've seen, whether it's software or just games especially is a perfect example. As you've seen in even the mobile games and South Park episodes. They literally had this game where you play as like Terrence and Philip or something, and then you build like a community thing. You spend money on it if you want to, but it coerces you into doing it. Like it's not even free; it's just freemium. I think it's anyway freemium. Yeah, I think it's called freemium. The episode itself. This is the same sort of thing that's happening. Which I'm surprised everyone's forgotten about now. That's a trap. That's like the honeypot essentially. I think that's the term anyway. Yeah, like, that's what it feels like. It just feels like honeypot is like there. It's got temptation. You can't say you don't want to dip your finger in that shit. Well, I definitely have. Not gonna lie, I've even tried to find justification for it myself in terms of generative AI because of my disability. But it just makes me unable and incapable of fucking drawing anything properly, which I still can't. I'm still drawing now, as you could hear. And it's not working. I just can't get it right. And people complain that I'm just not experienced enough at drawing. I shouldn't be drawing. It's like, okay, well, you didn't fucking help, so what do you want me to do? Even then, I just don't want to get into it, so let's move on. Oh, I better make an outro because this has gone on for a while. It's been some interesting topics, but not everything is interesting. I'm trying to think like what I can remove here. I don't know. It's hard to remove some of these actually. That's the thing. Yeah, I think all of these are pretty valid. Anyway, let's move on from the discussion. Move on. What? Let's outro. Let's move on from this episode. Thanks for listening.